What if the key to being a better leader wasn't all about the solutions you give, but about the questions you ask?
Our guest really talked about 3 crucial steps to have more energy as a leader.
This is the Limitless Leadership Lounge, where Coach and Jon learn along with you from some of the world's most decorated leaders. Recently promoted, let's sharpen the saw together.
How can you make a leadership breakthrough? A great question for leaders. With over 36 years of experience as a professional speaker, author of 15 books, and a coach, Brian has delivered more than 2,000 presentations worldwide, empowering individuals and organizations to realize their potential. He is known as America's breakthrough speaker. His mission is to inspire every single participant in his presentations to ignite breakthroughs in both their professional and personal life, to move from fear to freedom, from failure to faith, from ego to we go, and from good to great. Brian Biro, welcome to the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thank you so much, Jim and Jon. I'm just delighted to be with you. I love talking about breakthroughs. We're going to have a great time.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it. So let's dig right in. We're going to go all over the place, I'm sure. But if you were talking to a young emerging leader, because that's who the focus group is, we're trying to help, what do you share with them on how they can make a leadership breakthrough to be an effective leader?
Well, I love that question because it gets to the core and the starting place. What is leadership? Leadership, when you get down to it, is simply making decisions. So every decision you make is an act of personal leadership. How you show up every day is teaching people how to show up. How do you deal with adversity, with challenge, with change? Are you a change thriver or a change hider? That's leadership. Most important of all, what kind of impact do you have on people? Do you lift them up by who you are? So the starting place to that question is to know that you are already a leader. But I love to talk about what I call breakthrough leadership, because that's really what we're in the business of in life, is trying to break through that next level in our work, break through to be a better mom or dad, break through in our health. And breakthroughs over the years, I've had 3 really neat careers. My first career was my coaching career. I was a U.S. swimming coach. So I was working with young athletes to rise to their potential in their sport. But really, as you know, you don't coach swimming, you don't coach basketball, you coach people. Right. So it was really about coaching how to really break through their fears, obstacles, habits, or doubts. Then I went into my corporate career. I'd probably still be a swim coach, but I had no life. My team was the biggest team in America, and I had no life. I'm probably the only guy who went to get a life instead of a job by going to get my MBA. And I did. I had my corporate career, and we're trying to build a breakthrough culture. And then now for 36 years, as you mentioned, as a professional speaker. And through that time, it's become clear to me that breakthroughs come only when we focus on controlling 3 controllables. That's what breakthroughs come from. The first is to shape your future. Every breakthrough starts the same way. It has to start with vision. You got to see it before you can be it. But we've never learned about vision. We've never had a vision class in school. So how do you create breakthrough vision? That's the starting place. And we can talk about each one of these. The second is to energize and engage your team. And Jon and Jim, you know that when it comes to human performance, when it comes to teamwork, when it comes to really moving towards your potential, so much of it is about energy. Recently, I know the timing of these things can be recently the New York Knickerbockers won the national NBA championship. I don't think anybody who knows sport would say they had the most talent. I don't think one person would say they had the most talent of all the teams. They had good talent, but they didn't have the best talent. How did they win? Energy. Their energy in the prime moments was higher. So how do you energize and engage your team? That's the second controllable, because energy is a choice. Most people think it's kind of like the weather, like, hope I have enough energy to make it through those 4 calls today. But your energy is a choice. And when you understand that, you can really start to break through. And the final controllable, the third, what I call breakthrough controllable, is to build people, build teams, and build relationships. Whatever business you're in, whether it's high tech, manufacturing, sales, whatever business you're in, never forget, fundamentally, you're in the people business. It's how you grow and help others grow that determine how far you can go. But how do you build people? How do you help people know they're significant, know they are important? How do you help people trust you right away? How do you help people begin to believe in themselves? And that too is an area of controllable. So when you do those 3, you focus on those 3 controllables. Shape your future, that's vision. Energize and engage your team. That's energy. Build people, teams, and relationships. You're going to start to generate breakthrough results. And breakthrough results are results that when you step back, you look at them and go, I can't believe we did that. It seemed too far of a jump to make, but we did that. Here's the best part about breakthrough leadership and why focusing on what you put in is the way to do it. As you shape your future, energize, engage your team, build people, teams, and relationships. Start to generate more of those amazing breakthrough results. Breakthrough leadership moves from the outside and what you do to the inside and who you become. Mm-hmm. And that's a model of personal excellence, integrity, accountability, and humility. I keep this in front of me all the time. This is one of the biggest secrets of real leadership. Humility. For some reason, some people today think being humble is weak, that it's a soft thing, that you can't be confident and be humble. Could not be further from the truth. You can be incredibly humble and incredibly successful, because being humble doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. But the reason why humility is such a crucial skill for leadership is, if you think about it, only if you're humble are you a lifelong learner. Because only if you're humble would you rather make a mistake and learn something from it than pretend you're always right. When you're humble, you focus on character more than reputation. Because your character is who you are, your reputation only what others think you are. So breakthrough leadership is controlling those three controls that'll lead to become that breakthrough leader on the inside.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much there, Brian. And for our audience, if you feel like you're just drinking out of a fire hose, it's okay. We're here together. And so I want to zero down on one thing, Brian. You mentioned that leadership is all about making decisions. Okay. And that's huge. We also want to be careful as leaders, right? To not be that top-down, authoritative, only decision-making kind of leader. So how do we help as leaders empower our teams to also make those decisions that help them and the team approach breakthrough?
Boy, I love that question, because it brings up the most surprising key to being a breakthrough leader. Because as you just pointed out, most of us have been raised to believe that leadership is about answers, that you go to the leader for answers, decisions. And there's a time for that. But if you want to be a breakthrough leader, which means you want to build other leaders, leadership isn't about creating followers, it's about creating leaders. Leadership is more about questions than answers. In fact, here's the most surprising skill, is to become what I call a master asker. So why? Well, first of all, the quality of the questions you ask each other will determine the quality of your team. The quality of questions you ask yourself throughout your life will determine the quality of your life. And there are so many reasons why being a master asker is so crucial, maybe more than ever, because we have so many generations who we're working with. First is, one of the secret ways to elevate energy is to be a master asker. When you ask people great questions, and there's two kinds of questions. One kind of question is called enabling questions. Enabling questions allow somebody to think about what they want, to think about the solution, to think about when they've been at their best. They're questions like, what's the best team you've ever been a part of? What made it such a great team? How did you feel to be on that team? Those are enabling questions. There's also disabling questions. We've all asked them. We've all been asked them. Questions like, why are you so X? Why can't you ever X? Why are you always Xing everything up all the time? Well, disabling questions focus on what we don't want. Now, when I first started really digging into questions, I taught that being a master asker meant you only asked enabling questions. But I've changed that over time. What really matters is the ratio and the timing of those questions. At least 5-to-1 enabling versus disabling, and always end on an enabling question that allows you to look forward to what you want. Now, the reason why occasionally it's important to ask a disabling question, sometimes we got to get clear on the consequences of not breaking through, of not making a better choice, of not taking that action. It's kind of like a little kid riding a bicycle. All right, it's their first day on that bike. All right, they got their hands on the handlebars, they got their feet on the pedals, mom and dad are holding the fender, they got their tongue out for balance. And they start riding, and they're pedaling. All right, and they're wobbling, and mom and dad are encouraging them, and they're doing great. And finally, they got enough of momentum, they let them go. You wait, John, it's not going to be that long till you'll be holding on that bike. All right, and they're riding by themselves. Way to go. Unfortunately, right in front of them on the sidewalk that day was a great big rock. What happens? What's the kid look at? the rock. What happens? Wham, we hit the rock, we fall over, scrape up our little elbow. We walk by dad like, no problem, dad, I'm cool. Go up to mom and go, mom, I'm gonna die. All right, so now get ready, it's coming. So 2 weeks later, same little kid, same little bike. Doesn't need the tongue out anymore. Bopping down that street, boppity 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 bop. Bigger rock. What happens now? He goes around it. What goes around it first? Not the bike, his eyes. His vision goes around the rock. But here's why we have to ask an occasional disabling question. Would it do any good to that child either time to close their eyes and say, there's no rock, there's no rock, there's no rock? No, they could hurt themselves worse. That disabling question lets them see, hey, there's a rock there. Just don't stay stuck on it. That's the rock. Now how am I going to find my way around it? So as a master asker, you understand the ratio 5-to-1 enabling versus disabling questions. Second reason why being a master asker is so crucial. How does it make you guys feel when somebody asks you for what you think, asks you for your input, asks you for your thoughts, your solutions?
Pretty important.
Yeah, right away you feel valued, you feel important. All right, you can't do that when you tell them. All right, you can only do that when you ask them to create that feeling of I have value. In my own coaching career, at the end of my years of being a swimming coach, I had a huge team. I had 15 assistant coaches, all talented people. A year after I left coaching, I asked myself what at the moment felt like a disabling question. I was at UCLA in graduate school. We had to write a weekly paper on our previous work experience. And I asked myself, if I was such a good coach, what has happened to my 15 assistant coaches since I left coaching a year ago? And it's like somebody took a vat of ice water and dumped it on my head, because 14 out of 15 were floundering, right? And these were talented people. So I had to ask myself, why? What did I do as quote unquote the leader? And it finally hit me. I always told and I never asked. If they came to me and said, Brian, I got this problem, what should I do? I said, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, go do it. They couldn't even mess up. I was hovering and covering. Right? 14 out of 15 talented people didn't know what to do because I wasn't there to tell them what to do.
Wow.
One was flourishing. And the funny thing was, he was the least likely guy to be a swimming coach. He was a baseball player. He never swam competitively ever, but he had this magic with little kids. And his name was Jay. And I asked myself, what did I do different with Jay? Well, with Jay, I always asked and I never told. Wow. If Jay came to me and said, I got this problem, what should I do? I said, I don't know, Jay, what do you think you should do? Even if he said, I don't know, that's why I'm asking you, I'd turn it into a question. I'd say, well, I know you don't know, but if you did know, what would you do? All right? And he'd tell me. And a year later, he was building that youth program so incredibly well. And he retired about 2 years ago. He went on to be a leader in his field. His first job was as a special ed teacher and then a special ed educator. And I couldn't go to his retirement because I was in another part of the country speaking. So I called him that week and we talked and we laughed. And finally, he got really serious. And he goes, Coach, I don't think I ever told you how much it meant to me, how much you believed in me. And I said, I did believe in you. And he said, I know, because you always asked me what I thought. And you let me do it, even if you knew there was a better way. And I go, I might have thought there was a better way, but your way was a great way for you. Yes. You can't do that when you tell instead of ask. So there's so many reasons why being a master asker does exactly what you asked, Jon. It allows people to begin to believe in themselves, to take responsibility and be accountable, and to mold them into leaders rather than followers sitting around waiting for you to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, is the interesting thing, one of the things you talked about, we're going to delve back into it, because I just admire, because both of us have been around a long time, and the fact that you have so much energy, and you talked about the importance of bringing energy. What advice would you give a young leader to help them bring the energy, day in and day out?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for talking about it, because to everyone we touch, our energy is our example. And so the first thing is that energy is a choice. As I said, most people think their energy is kind of up to like the weather. Man, I hope that weather's good for that family picnic. But it's really a matter of choice. All right. And here's the starting place. We may want to energize and engage our team, but before we can energize and engage anyone else, who must we energize and engage? Ourselves. Know that energy starts on the inside and it's contagious. It spreads to the outside, just like lack of energy does. And so why is your energy as choice? Why is your energy such an important choice? The first reason allows me to introduce you and your listeners to my favorite word. And what would be a day in our life without another acronym? Why is energy so important? The first reason is it's all about the WOO, which is called the woo, which incidentally is really fun to say. All right, so woo. The woo stands for window of opportunity, which is every precious moment. What do I mean? Well, you never know if the next person you'll meet today might become a lifelong friend, as you didn't know when you met your lifelong friend. You never know if the next thing you say to your son or your daughter, your spouse, the person you happen to be sitting next to today, if something you say in the next conversation may be so on target for what they couldn't seem to see with their own eyes, but you saw it. And because of what you said, their life got better. You never know. See, the question to everyone who's watching this great podcast is not, is there a woo? There is. The question you got to ask yourself is, how many of those have I missed? And why do I miss them? The first reason why energy is so crucial to you as a leader is energy helps you seize more woos. Simple as that. Yeah, you ever notice when you have more energy, how much more alert you are to solution or possibility? You see, with every adversity is planted the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. In other words, when you think about it, hasn't the toughest challenges you've ever tackled been the things from which you grew the most? When you have energy, you start to look for that seed of possibility even in the tough times. When you don't have energy, you get knocked out cold by the adversity. So the first reason why energy is so important is energy helps you seize more woos. Second reason, as I said before, to your children, no matter their ages, for as long as you draw breath, to your team, to your customers, to anyone you care about, your energy is your example. People won't remember that much of what you say, no matter how well you say it, and they'll never forget your energy. They get your energy before you open your mouth. They get your energy after you've closed your mouth. They get your energy of the phone. They haven't seen your face. They get your energy the way it stands email. Email does not stand for electronic mail to me. It stands for energy mail, for goodness sakes. To everyone we touch, our energy is our example. So how can you work on your energy to really begin to build it? Because before you can energize others, you must energize yourself. The starting place, start by creating a simple 10-point energy scale that allows you to measure your energy on a consistent basis. A great leader needs to measure their energy. How can you improve something if you don't measure it? So on our 10-point energy scale, 1 is comatose, all right? 10 is a child on Christmas morning. 10 is the way you feel when you just nailed it. You did the best job of your life. 10 is the way the people that I've had 1 million people over the last 36 years break wooden boards in my event, karate style. 10 is the way they feel when they break that board and think, I didn't know I could do that. What else could I do that I didn't know I could do? So now that we've given you that context, that 10-point energy scale, here is the $1 trillion question. It's a life-changing, career-changing, you-changing question. On that scale from 1 to 10, where are you living your life? Woo, that is a great question. You're living at level 6, level 7, and unless your answer to that was 99.9 on the 10-point scale, the next question is the breakthrough question. How can you elevate that number? Because whatever that number was, suppose you said, when I think about it, I've been living at a 6.5. What is that 6.5? It is really nothing more than your E-habit that has become your E-comfort zone. And until it's high enough, it's your E-confinement zone. So how can you change it? 3 simple ways. Number 1, your energy is created by the way that you move, period. Anytime you've been at your best, you've given your best presentation, you've been your most creative, you've been your most loving, you've been your most courageous, you've moved your body distinctly differently than when you've not been your best. Your body line and posture, your facial expression, your eye position, and your breathing. Now, I've said this, Jim, sometimes to some people, they go, well, Brian, if I had more energy, I'd move more. Move more and you'll have more energy. That's where the choice resides. I bet everyone who's watching this podcast knows somebody in your life who amazes you because at a very advanced age, they have this incredible energy. And though I clearly have no idea who you specifically may be thinking of, I bet I know 2 things about that person. 1, they're one of your heroes. They're somebody you admire because of their energy. And number 2, they keep moving. We don't get older. We just stop moving. I'm actually 94 years old, but I just keep moving all the time. Not quite 94. So the first key to energy, to elevating your energy on that 10-point scale, is to change the way you move. If you want to move your life, you got to move yourself. If you want to win the race, you've got to change your pace. Second, and even more powerful, your energy is in direct proportion to your level of purpose. Whenever you're full of purpose, you're full of energy. Have you ever noticed when you get to do what you love to do, energy's no problem? But what happens to your energy when you lose sight of your purpose? It's like someone puts a pin in the balloon. All right, so I bring with me to every event at which I speak, Jim and John, I bring a photo of my family. They're my purpose. I love them more than life itself. And as beautiful as they are, I don't bring the photo with me to show my audience. I bring it with me to show me. And the last thing I do before I speak, as I do every single time, is I go to my purpose. I go to that photo and I fill up with them. I think about how much I want to do for them, give to them, be for them. I think about how I'm going to dedicate everything I can to this audience right here and now, to my family. And it changes me instantly. See, no longer does it matter if my knees are sore. No longer does it matter if somebody cut me off in traffic. All that matters when I'm filled with purpose is that if I don't give you the best I have to give right here and now, I'm not giving them my best. And I simply won't do that. So the second secret to breakthrough energy is to focus on purpose. Here's a great way to do it. For the next 30 days, this will change your life. Pick the next 30 days, start every morning with one question. Ask yourself, what am I truly grateful about today? The word has a secret in it, especially if you're not big on spelling. What you're grateful about has within it the capacity, the power to make you grateful. What you're grateful about will focus you on your priorities. Your priorities are the pathway to purpose. So the second key is to start with energy, focus on purpose. When you have purpose, you are unstoppable. One of the greatest books of all time is called Man's Search for Meaning. And it was written by Viktor Frankl, who endured the worst of the concentration camps in World War II. He made it through. And he said that those that endured, those that made it through the worst inhumanity to men, were not the most physically strong, were not necessarily the youngest. They were those that had a purpose left undone. In other words, if you're not inspired, you're expired. All right. And so the final key to breakthrough energy is to release your energy vampires. All right. Because they don't exist unless you give them power. We all have somebody in our life who sucks the energy out of us. When we get excited, they bring us back down. When we think of how we can, they tell us how we can't. All right. They're our energy vampires. I thought my energy vampire for a big part of my life was my dad. You know, he was big and tough and quiet. He always seemed to be kind of critiquing. And make a very long story short, my dad had lost his mother when he was 7 years old. He had never said any these words, I love you, to any human being from the day he was 7, including my mom, who they were married for 71 years.
Wow.
In the last 15 years of his life and my mom's life, I was their caregiver, though I live in Virginia and they lived in Lake Tahoe, California. In the 14 months between when my mother passed away and my dad passed away, I spent more than 200 days with my dad in person. And what changed my life was when my first daughter was born, my dad was not a part of it. And so my wife and I talked and I said, you know, as hard as it's been to be around my dad in my life, he's my energy vampire. I don't want our children to never know their grandparents. So we made the breakthrough choice that we would visit them. I hadn't seen him in 14 years.
Wow.
But I made a bigger choice. And this is one that everyone on this show can make right now, a choice you can make right now in your own way. I made up my mind that when I was around my dad, for the first time ever in my life, I would be myself. I would bring my own authentic energy. I wouldn't give up my energy. I always tried to be who I thought he wanted me to be. And I thought he wanted to be like him, tough and quiet. Man, that is not me. I am a goofball. I am the worst. I cry at openings of supermarkets. I kid you not. I cried at Mickey and Minnie on Ice when my daughters were 10 and 5. They were mortified, but I couldn't help it. So we went to see my parents. And for the first time ever around my dad, I was myself. And in one day of releasing the energy vampire that I had created, I now know, my life totally changed. First, I realized how much I love my dad and how much he gave me. My dad taught me about energy. My dad taught me about work ethic. My dad taught me to do the right thing when nobody was looking. But I couldn't see those gifts because I was too busy being bitter to get better. And then I realized my dad had always told me he loved me. He'd always told me he was proud of me. He just couldn't say it. But he could work 2 jobs for 18 years so we'd have enough. All right. He could get an old bike, and for 6 months, in the tiny amount of time that he had when he wasn't working or sleeping, he'd slip off the garage and work on that bike. So Christmas morning at 9 years old, there's my red racer bike. That day, when I first released my energy vampire, my dad and I talked, and I realized how much he meant to me. In those 14 months between my mother died and my father passed away, I was with him 200 days. Every day I wasn't with him, we talked on the phone. And every one of those days of conversations on the phone, and every one of those days in person, including the last one when I held his hand and he took his last breath,
Wow.
ended with the words, "I love you, son."
Wow.
Now, am I promising you that when you release your energy vampire, that you'll have that happen? I can't promise that. You don't control them. But I can promise you this. You'll break above 9.0 on your 10-point scale. You'll become easy to impress and really hard to offend. And that's a great recipe to be a breakthrough leader. So release your energy vampires. Focus on your purpose. Change the way you move. And you will have energy just explode out of you in a real and authentic way that will naturally cause others to rise in their energy as well.
Wow, there's so much energy coming out of you, Brian, that you could have convinced me that you're 94. Tell us, when it comes to like what you learned from your dad and your parents, and were there other mentors in your life who have also, because somehow you got to be the way that you are, energetic, goofball, that kind of more the type of leader who's charismatic versus, someone like your dad. So what was the influence of other mentors in your life?
Yeah, probably my greatest mentor was, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time. His name was John Wooden. Coach Wooden was my friend. He wrote the foreword to my first book. And his style was completely different than me. He was very laid back, quiet in a way. He was very articulate. He loved poetry. He was the consummate gentleman. But he had a passion inside of him to build people. That's what he never said the words winning or losing to his players in 27 years at UCLA. This is the coach who won 10 national championships in 12 years. Never said the words. Did he want to win? Oh, yeah. But what he wanted was for everyone he was around to realize that success is peace of mind. And it comes from knowing you've given the best of which you're capable. In other words, success is about controlling your controllables, about focusing on what you put in. And he'd wink at you and say, you do that well enough, good things will come out. And so it isn't, your style is your style. I love life, and I believe in people. I believe we all have the capacity to get better every day. We all have the capacity to change and to make new choices. But ultimately, what really matters, what really has been the influence, are people who walk their genuine talk, who are authentic, who are genuine, and who really focus on character more than reputation. Your character is who you are, your reputation only what others think you are. And if you focus on your character, it'll become your reputation sooner or later. But I think the most important thing from all of my role models in my life, this was true of my dad, this was true of Coach Wooden, this is true, I can see, of the two of you. They give the ultimate gift. And it's really what my life's goal is. And I call the ultimate gift being fully present. Now, what that means is when you're fully present, 100% of your mind, body, and spirit are with the people you're with where they are now. Now, how many of us have ever been with somebody where we know their body's there, but the rest of them is definitely in another county?
Yeah.
And so here's a really important question. How does it make you feel when someone you wish to be present with you is not fully present with you?
Oh,
Some people it makes them a little angry, but for most of us, it makes us feel sad or small. But for everyone I've ever known, when there's someone who wishes to be fully present and they're not, it makes us feel worthless. It makes us feel insignificant and unimportant. And what is our job as breakthrough leaders? I believe it comes down to this. Our job is to help the people that we lead, that we serve, that we love, that we care about, to know they're important, to know they're significant, to know that they're appreciated, that they matter. Because when people feel that way, they rise to that, oh yeah, spirit. And when people feel unimportant, that they don't matter, they fall to, oh no. Right? And there's only one way that you can actually do that unmistakably, unshakably, and unfakeably. And that is to be fully present. Because every time you're fully present with someone, you can't fake it. They know it. You say to them, you are important. When I was with John Wooden, I was with him many, many times, I always felt like I was the important one because he was so present with me. He was so interested in me. All right. I was stunned. Here's the greatest of all time at what he did. And who am I? And this man is interested in me. And I walked out being 2 inches taller because that belief transferred through being present. It's the ultimate gift. I learned this the hard way, so I hope people learn it the easy way. I call it the gift of being fully present because when my two daughters were 8 and 3, I was so caught up in my career and my stuff and my speaking that I was on the road all the time. And when I wasn't on the road, I was on the phone. And one night they walked in my office and they looked at me and they said, "Daddy, we just want to know, do you love your phone more than you love us?"
Wow.
I felt the blade go in deep. Emerson said, "What you do screams so loudly, I can't hear a word you're saying." I couldn't fake it. I was living my life as if my phone was a higher priority than my children. Do you know that the average American father today spends more than 10 hours a day on some digital device and less than 8 minutes a day in actual interaction with his children?
Wow.
And I didn't even have 8 minutes. My children woke me up to the greatest gift I will ever give to anyone is to be fully present. They changed my life. I made up a decision that night, the next morning, I drove them to school, got them breakfast, all right? And I came home and I said, I'm going to commit to presence. After that, I never missed one of their dance performances. I never missed one of their big school events. I never missed one of those daddy and daughter dances. And I thought I was doing it for them. Do you know that every dimension of our life elevated with the decision to be more fully present? Because you don't get less done professionally, you get more done. Because you're there with full energy, full vision, and full focus. No coincidence. None of my 16 books got written until my daughter shook me up and woke me up to the power of presence. So just remember, the past is history. The future, a mystery. The gift is now. That's why we call it the present.
Yeah. Well said, Brian. So I do have to delve, being a former basketball coach, and John Wooden was kind of my idol growing up. In fact, this is back, I'm showing my age, that, because UCLA, I was on the East Coast. So I would beg my parents on Saturday night to be able to stay up to watch UCLA play. And one of my most cherished possessions is a autographed picture of the Pyramid of Success that he made famous. I know that was the basis of your first book. Can we dig into that a little bit about the pyramid? Because I've looked at it immensely. Share your insights about to help leaders from what you garnered from the Pyramid of Success.
Yeah, I have it with me every day. It's right behind me here. I have one that was made for me. That's actual blocks of the pyramid. Well, Coach Wooden actually developed the pyramid not about basketball. He was also an English teacher. And what he realized was that comparison is a very dangerous thing to use. Many leaders think that they're supposed to compare. You're the good one, you're the bad one. Immediately, that's the way people see themselves. And he recognized that we all have different strengths. We all have different talents. We all have areas what we're good at and areas we're not good at. And so what he wanted to do was take away comparison, focus on what you put in. And then he developed the Pyramid of Success to give kind of a roadmap to how to develop genuine character that he called competitive greatness. Now, it wasn't really about beating anybody. It's about rising to your potential. Because Coach Wooden believed, and in fact, it struck me so much, the first time I spoke to him, he used this quote, "There are no overachievers." One of my books is called There Are No Overachievers. What he's saying is, you have more in you than you know. We are all been given more gifts. And so the Pyramid of Success is a great model. He used it because if you pull out one of the stones in a pyramid, what happens to the pyramid? Collapses.
Yeah.
So every one of these are interrelated to each one. Things like, the outside is about your enthusiasm, all right, and basically about your work ethic is what it really comes down to. Industriousness, he called it. All right, enthusiasm without industriousness is just wasted potential. Industriousness without enthusiasm becomes routine, becomes difficult and painful rather than loving what you do. So they're all related that way. And he used this pyramid, was in his first few practices with every team, every year at UCLA, he did a couple things that became a cornerstone. One, he taught the Pyramid of Success. He used it to model every single day because he realized he was coaching people. And if you were ever around John Wooden, he never really talked about national championships. He always talked about what his players he had coached had gone on to do in their lives. That was his championship. He loved, he used to say, I never had a player I didn't love. Said a few I didn't like very much, but I had none that I didn't love. And so he used that pyramid and he taught people that. The other one you'll laugh about and probably know about it was he taught his players how to put their socks on properly.
Yeah.
It sounded kind of goofy, but when you hear like Walton talk about it, he said a basketball player ultimately is only good as their feet. If they get blisters, if they get injuries on their feet, they're going to start to move differently. They're going to end up hurting their knees or their back or their hips. All right. And so he taught them how to put their socks on properly. They thought he was crazy when they started out. By the end, they go, I guess he's not so crazy. All right. Success comes with attention to small details. So Coach Wooden was really about that pyramid to create a roadmap to living as close to your potential as you can possibly get.
Yeah. Brian, we got just a few minutes left here, so I'm really curious to hear about your journey and your future upcoming, because like you said, I mean, we want to stay in the moment here, but the present is, or the future is a mystery. And when it comes to you, I know you're still doing speaking, you're doing some amazing things out there. You got 16 books already. Do we have more on the way? Tell us more about what's next for you.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I turned 70 a year ago, so I'm 71 years old. It took me, before I hit 70, I passed 1 million people that I'd spoken to in live events. I keep really good records of how many people I spoke to. So it took me 35 years to reach 1 million people. So when I turned 70, my new vision and my goal is to reach 1 million more by the time I reach. So 35 years to hit the first million, but I only got 10 to make the next million. So I love what I do. And because I joke about it, but it's true. When I'm on stage, I'm 25. I get off stage, okay, I'm 71, but on stage, I'm 25. And so I want to reach as many people as I can, because in a world with AI, moving very quickly, and it has its value, just like anything we've ever brought up technologically has its value. I think that still people matter. I still think that our choices matter. I still think that leadership is not something you can get from a machine. It's something you must develop inside yourself. So what's next for me? I do have actually 2 books that'll come out in the next year. One is a book about kindness and the power of kindness. And I'm one of the co-authors of that book. And it's going to be a really powerful book. I'm really excited about it, each writing a chapter. And the other is called Chuckles and Tears. My career as a speaker has been about actual interaction through physical activity and stories. And so this is a book of stories that touch your heart and your funny bone. But most of all, I just love what I do. I always sign every email as Brian Biro, husband, father, grandfather, speaker, author. So I never want to lose clarity about my priorities. And being a grandparent, it is a great deal. Being a parent, as Jon is going to be soon.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. And that was very inspiring, as far as, because a lot of what you said today, we can also take away parenting too, just as valuable advice for parents, because that's a huge leadership role in life, not just for team leaders.
It truly is. And if you are working to be the best dad you can be, it's going to pay off in your work and vice versa. In all of my speaking, so much of it is about family, but it resonates that it's just as important in the workplace as it is in the home. And vice versa.
Brian, I got one more thing I do have to bring up, in doing some research on you. I know there was a very famous book by Mitch Albom called Tuesdays with Maury, but I think you have someone about Wednesdays.
I wrote a chapter in one of my books. In fact, it was the book, There Are No Overachievers. It's called Wednesdays with Ruby. And it's a story about a person in my life who was my grandmother. Her name was Ruby Jewell. I'm not kidding you. Ruby Jewell was her name. And when I grew up, I thought she was a little goofy. She was very flamboyant. She drank too much. And I didn't know who she was. And I judged her as being just this sweet but flaky lady. But when I was a swimming coach, I was very dedicated to my profession. One day a week, Wednesday mornings, I would drive about 15 miles to take my grandmother, Ruby, to get food. I'd look after them one morning a week. And I got to know her. And I realized she was incredible. I would see her in the morning. She stopped drinking in those years I was with her. I realized that she had borne so much on her shoulders throughout her life, and I had just so misjudged her. She taught me to stop judging people right away on the outside and to look a little deeper. And she's been she's on my wall right over the other side of that right other side of the pyramid. She taught me that when we are easy to impress and hard to offend, and that was my grandmother, we have a recipe for a great life. She would walk into a supermarket, and by the time she left, everyone in that place was her friend. She was so excited about the cantaloupe, excited about the coupons, and people just kind of smiled being around her, and she would not get offended. So oftentimes we take things personal when it's not personal. We don't know what's going on with that other person. So Wednesdays with Ruby taught me to be easy to impress and hard to offend. And if you live that in your life as a parent, as a professional, as a leader, you're going to be a breakthrough leader.
Yeah, well said. Being easy to impress and hard to offend. And in this day and age, I think we're easier than ever to offend, right?
Yeah,
The discussions that we have,
absolutely.
and we just pile on, whether it be digitally on social media or in person. So you talked a little bit about being easy to impress, certainly, but what's your secret to being hard to offend?
First of all, is to ask yourself the question when you feel like somebody's coming at you. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? Instantly, you're going to be softened a little bit. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe I didn't understand. Maybe they just found out that somebody they love has cancer. So right away, being hard to offend means I'm going to step back and maybe I don't know everything there is to know here. Secondly, we can disagree without being disagreeable. That was one of Coach Wooden's favorite statements. I don't want a team of people who are just like me because we'll only see the narrow little bit that I see. We'll only be good at the things I'm good at. I want people around me who are great at the things I'm not great at. All right. And so that means we got to embrace differences and not be offended by them. So the ultimate kindness is to be kind to people when they're not kind to you. It's easy to be kind to kind people. But what about the person who cut you off in traffic? You don't even know them. You don't even know if they saw you. You don't even know what's going on with them. You don't know if they're rushing to the hospital because their child is in the hospital. So come from that place of, I don't know everything. I refuse to be someone who judges people right off the top. And there could be some other meaning here. I'm not going to allow somebody to take my joy and allow somebody to take my peace of mind away by being offended. So ask that question. What else could this mean? And instantly you get off your high horse and you go, well, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe I don't need to get offended.
Yeah, I think that's really powerfully said. And I know that was convicting for me. I'm sure our audience is convicted by that too, because it's so easy and that's our natural reactions. But we actually have to fight against those and to be easy to impress and hard to offend. So, Brian, how do people find out more about you? Where do they find all 16 of your books and learn more about you and bring you in if you're a good fit to speak to their organization?
Thanks so much. Just my website is brianbiro.com, Brianbiro. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I love people. I believe that we have so much in us. I've seen it in sport, in business, and as a speaker, that we can do things we didn't know we could do when we woke up this morning. Every day is a brand new one. We got a new woo, window of opportunity. So carpe woo, seize the woo.
All right. All right. We are. And links down in the show notes. Brian Biro. Brian, thanks so much for coming on today on the Limitless Leadership Lounge.
Thanks so much. It's such a pleasure to be with both of you. I can see you both have such a genuine passion to help people. And Jon, as we said before, best wishes as you move towards becoming a dad. And Jim, you and I can share grandparent joys.
Thank you, Brian.